What did you ask Santa for this year? Whatever it is, it pales in comparison to what we got for Christmas 40 years ago. Kids of 2023 don't know what they missed out on when it came to all the wonders offered our imaginations in just one exciting year. Straight out of the Gen Experience, I'm Victor, and these are the most highly anticipated Christmas gifts to top anyone's wish list back in 1983. We'll throw in a few oddball ones and what mom and dad were looking to get that same year. Smurfs had been around for decades, a Belgium creation by Peyo, and apparently a delicacy for homeless men and their cats. They became a Saturday morning cartoon success and hit it big in 1981, even if they were small. A variety of merchandise took over, and those overly enthusiastic woodland creatures sang their la-la-las right to the bank and into our hearts. You know, with all that singing going on, I'm pretty sure they were more than living in those mushrooms, if you know what I mean. From blue mushroom dwellers to green fatigues, G.I. Joe was having their second Christmas in 1983, at least since becoming a hit at the height of the 3 3/4-inch figure. One thing the Joes were not known for was subtlety. They came out swinging to get your mom, to get you the new 1983 Sky Striker, or the G.I. Joe headquarters. Famous figures who debuted that year with new swivel arm articulation even were Cobra Commander, Destro, Snow Job, and CoverGirl, and none of them have been forgotten since. But they weren't done there. If pretend firepower was not your thing, get excited for real fire and open up your own G.I. Joe wood-burning kit. Now you can practice your scorching techniques on walls and oak furniture while mom and dad leave you alone to play with fire. We were lucky having parents that trusted us with such a responsibility, and even if the house burned down around us, well, we could learn something. For those of us who enjoyed playing with fire a little too much, we may have instead got G.I. Joe walkie-talkies for Christmas. These sleek and streamlined bricks could weigh down a tent pole, and I'm sure they came complete with the familiar loud-ass static sound between pressing the talk button. Did you know they started as My Pretty Pony in 1981? But by 1983, a little color change, a butt tattoo, and a name change to My Little Pony had our little equines rearing up to show us the money. 1983 was a big year for pony power. Long before today's Applejack and Twilight Sparkle, not to mention bronies, there was Blossom and Cotton Candy, complete with rump designs that girls and some boys could identify with, and calm themselves down by simply combing their long day-glow manes. For those young men and women trying to jam to the newest hits or stay connected to the big game, when the big game was baseball, having a portable and compact AM/FM radio hanging off your wrist could elevate your cool factor. Unless, of course, it was shaped like a hamburger, a hot dog, or a bottle of Pepsi Cola. But a kid walking around with a Budweiser radio? Oh, classic 80s. No denying Barbie is huge, and I'm not just talking about her bust size. She had been huge since 1959, but in 83, with a newer face mold, she hung out on Malibu Beach as Sun Gold Malibu Barbie with Ken. Then it's a trip to McDonald's in that 80s staple of fashion, Western wear. Later that night, you could dress them to the nines in evening wear fashions, Dream Date, that just debuted. Fully covered, no one could see their tan lines, unless of course they got a little freaky. Can't afford Barbie? No worries. Sears has you covered with an exclusive clone of the California teen model and friends. This little-known option was exact in every way, including the measurements, and could share Barbie's clothes. Featured together in the Wish book, you could be gifted Lindsay and Craig. How country club are those names? You could try to pass them off to your friends as the real queen of Mattel, Barbie, but it was best just to take the alternate route and portray them as Barbie and Ken's ugly friends to help them feel good about themselves. If you were more of a 3 3/4-inch action figure kind of person, but with fashion sense that would rival the Pink Princess, Glamour Gals was for you. This small and short-lived action figure doll line could work right along Princess Leia, Buck Rogers, or Captain Kirk, but with just a little more style and flair, and a lot of long flowing hair to get in the way. The Glamour Gals were the same size as Star Wars, and even repurposed the motion stand from the original Galactic action figures. Looking like a stage full of supermodels, if they had all been hit with a shrink ray, they were at least able to land one of the most epic playsets. The Ocean Queen cruise ship, seen here in the 1983 Wish book. The $4 dolls could go out on their party boat and listen to yacht rock before it was a thing. However, 1983 was their last year, and the Ocean Queen quickly got lost at sea. During the Gen Experience, young people played with toys until a little older than they do today. Some of the most famous were simply marked as for kids 5 and up, and even as we hit that first teen year, we might still reach for a favorite figure. At the same time, we reached for a phone. Our own phone. Today, they get phones much earlier, and playing make-believe seems to be a thing of the past. Times have changed, but we still wanted our own phone back then, and you bet it was going to be one of the newest touch-tone kind. Rotary was still common, but we were not getting stuck with one of those dinosaurs. With so many choices, you had to have one that fit your early 80s style. If you had a phone in your room, you were like Richie Rich and the envy of all of your friends. Kids weren't just on the phone though. They actually went out and met their friends at the park to throw the ball around, play some hoops, or maybe even go a little roller skating. While socializing at the mall or arcade though, you wanted to be comfortable. Why go to a local craftsman or even a true Native American to have these popular and comfy walking shoes of the time? Just make your own with this moccasin making kit. Leather forms and laces, it was much safer than that wood burning thing and got a lot more use. Don't waste your money buying a pair, waste your money on making your own for no more than $8. Do you remember when a friend spent the night? Just you and a pal on a Friday night, staying up late, watching things you never got to during the week while emptying a bag of Doritos and sucking down a 2-liter Coke? Or maybe you had a slumber party with your closest friends. If so, you may have still wanted to show off your slumber bag. Sleeping bags in a variety of character licenses from Garfield to G.I. Joe. Good for both camping and during a time when we still had friends over for the night, or slumber parties that were not overly orchestrated overnight playdates sourced through a committee of moms who desperately wanted to be the coolest one. Just casual, no plan, no frills sleepovers. Well, nothing but you and your buddy Michael Knight to keep you company in the sack. Or at least on it. Some lesser known but infamous toys debuted in 1983 and ended the next year for how easily they fell apart. Except it didn't help that you were encouraged to do just that. Manglore, this toy had you squeezing it and pulling it hard, always returning to its actual size and shape. Oh, where's this guy's dog tags? Or you could simply rip it apart? What the? And it magically reattaches itself. Sure. Okay, I'm skeptical, and so were a bunch of parents at the time. This toy line promised you could tear a limb off and it would simply stick back together. Color me suspicious. As you can guess, once it was apart, that sticking didn't last. And you certainly weren't going to be able to stretch the whole thing out again like you had before without the limbs popping right off. With so many complaints, Manglore retreated to Manglore Mountain and was never heard from again, except in hushed and shameful whispers. Before video game consoles were readily available, smaller electronic handheld games were all the rage. Popular in a variety of different sports and themes, this was the pinnacle of video game entertainment, for a while at least. And we liked it. Offered in 1983 were casino-based games, racing, and even Dungeons & Dragons. But in this year, home video game consoles were a thing. And no, not just Pong. There was the Odyssey 2 by Magnavox, which we had, and I'm ashamed. Everyone else seemed to have ColecoVision, Intellivision, or one of the various Atari systems with games just like the originals in the arcade. Well, as close as they could make them. Departing that high-tech wizardry our parents shook their heads at even then, another popular IP debuted with the required 80s toy line edition, a playset. The popular Care Bears from American Greetings had jumped right off their birthday cards and onto TV and toy shelves. In 1983, you could unwrap a Care-a-Lot playset on Christmas Day. This heart-shaped playset was home to the Care Bears, who would watch from their clouds and look for the little miserable children who were depressed or feeling blue. If I were them, I wouldn't be feeling too great about this lackluster playset. Not at all on the top 10 list of the time. And another popular franchise first seen on greeting cards, Strawberry Shortcake, also got some real estate in '83. Christmas may have been a little merrier with your own Berry Happy Home playset. This oversized dollhouse was perfect for the myriad of dessert-themed characters. Having Strawberry Shortcake meant never needing a scented candle. The smell infused in dolls like Crepe Suzette, Lemon Meringue, and Huckleberry Pie made your room like a French boulangerie at sunrise. Now, all those sweet treats had a place to live. I assume you already know that 1983 was the Christmas of violence. If you don't, make sure to go check out that original Gen Experience show from the early years right here on the channel. But there they were. No one could have foreseen their success or the chaos they would cause. Cabbage Patch Kids, dolls both boys and girls could adopt with the most old-world, mature names ever given a child, with the likes of Anastasia Theodora, Archibald Claude, and Augustus Burt, sold for anywhere between the suggested $25 retail to well over $100. Parents would do anything for their little terrors. I mean angels. They were on top for a little while, and even with the sus story behind Xavier Roberts, yes, that's him bathing with his dolls, it sure made him a very rich cowboy. 1983 demonstrated just how much kids had their parents wrapped around their little fingers, as moms would pry dolls from the cold dead hands of fathers just to pluck one right from the Cabbage Patch into the hands of the expected mothers. It's 1983, and there better be one under the tree, or there'll be hell to pay. You know, there were plenty of new premieres, but kids and parents alike could count on the old standbys. Hot Wheels and Legos weren't only staples, they were successes and continue their streak even today. Just goes to show you how quality products and properties of the past still have stories to tell and are telling them. Even Tonka would never let you down with new designs. Reliable, there is always a variety of new trucks and construction vehicles for your future blue-collar kids. Well, at least I hope we'll have some blue-collar kids in the future. We need them. When finding a package of batteries in your stocking that morning, it meant just one thing. Something under that tree was gonna need them. Was it an electronic game or radio-controlled car with endlessly updated designs? You may not have asked for one, but when you got it, you were excited. Once you see it, you just gotta remember Tyco Daredevil slot car racing. Do slot cars still exist today? Would kids play with them? Slot car racing was a thing. Big, huge, exciting, and pulse pounding. The competitor in all of us loved to press that handle down on our hands to beat our opponent. Experience the speed as it whizzed by, making those impossible to forget sounds, and always anticipating a crash. Good times. What wasn't crashing? Motu. That's Masters of the Universe for you not in the know. 1982 was their official release, and after the main figures, Beasts and Castle Grayskull that first year, 1983 gave us a whole new wave to dream about and pester our folks to buy for Christmas. New figures included Manny Faces and Ram Man, as well as Evil Lyn, Faker, Trapjaw, and Triclops for the Evil Warriors. All of them still iconic characters and popular today, as with most things from the Gen experience, continually living in our pop culture. A CD player in 1983? Yup, and for well over $500. This one offering was alongside boomboxes, stereos, and Walkmans, not to mention various size instruments for the musically inclined. FisherPrice even had a cassette tape recorder and a phonograph, not even a record player. With a name like that, you'd have to expect a hand crank to power this baby. Moving on to Charmkins, they debuted in 1983. They even had an animated special, which still baffles me how a charm bracelet has a cartoon. Then again, how was there ever a Rubic the Magic Cubes cartoon? Go figure. Looking at this picture in the age of the young model, I can't help but think this was the original indoctrination of today's Alex and Ani and Pandora charm-obsessed adults. What do you think? Blackstone the Magician sets. Magic was huge in the Gen experience. We used to put on magic shows for our families and even kids in the neighborhood. Charge a dime or nothing. It was how we socialized and developed our creativity. Many kids were inspired by Blackstone and then David Copperfield, and these kids were not uncommon. Like the Science Lab toy sets of the 50s and 60s, this was a goldmine to kickstart some kids' future of being relentlessly bullied. That is, until he was the one sawing people in two. And did you think I'd forget? Who would miss that Return of the Jedi, the final Star Wars movie, was released in 1983? Okay, the final movie of the original and ultimate Star Wars trilogy. Keeping their 3 3/4 inch figures and design style consistent since their first figures, this last batch produced more figures than was possible to attain. But I have a feeling some of you got them. Did you? Let me know if you had the whole collection, even those characters with 2 seconds of useless screen time. Either way, we wanted them all, and I remember the joy of unwrapping the newest figures on Christmas morning. Figures, playsets, vehicles, creatures, you name it, Lucas made it. So far, nothing's been too out there, not even those shaped transistor radios, but I do got a couple strange ones, or at least unique in a few different ways. But I can imagine there was a few kids who may have been very excited to follow the footsteps of Grandma, or live their best Holly Hobby life when they got their favorite Christmas wish, a Loom. Yes, a Loom. Hopefully it came with sheep or yak fur. Now all we need is a spinning wheel. Don't touch the spindle! I'm kidding. And what about this? Ventriloquist dummies. I'm not kidding. I guess they didn't see that Twilight Zone episode, and Goosebumps was still a few years off. Perhaps inspired by Bob Campbell, Chuck's dummy from the sitcom Soap, being a ventriloquist wasn't surprising at the time. We'd still see these guys on variety shows and talent competitions performing to laughing crowds. Seeing them in a catalog for kids makes it all too real that once, before mobile phones, our kids wanted to perform, wanted to learn a skill, a trade perhaps. Well, trade might be a stretch. and show off their own creative side and talent with this popular performing art form. Don't see a lot today. Anyone here play with a ventriloquist dummy? Did you? Do you know someone who does? You know, mom and dad wanted something too for Christmas, and sometimes they just had to rely on one another to do it. The microwaves were still rising in popularity and the kitchens hadn't caught up. How many of you from the Gen experience remember the microwave stand? A rolling cart perfect for that new radioactive wonder to sit on and be placed at the edge of a counter, as you had no other location to put it. No one minded it taking up all that space. It could cook a freaking turkey. Although we quickly realized they were much better for just warming hot dogs and making popcorn. Dad, on the other hand, he had simple desires. Happy with a new grill, set of golf clubs, a dartboard with a beer logo. Whatever was out there, Dad getting something for Christmas was always a treat for him. And after 1 or 2 uses, whatever it was would sit and collect dust or rot. Just like that racquetball set he got and played a few games with Ted over at the Y, just like the rest of the decade's yuppies. Jump balls, which were like a secret leg workout for kids. Bop bags to help you with your anger management. And big wheels when we went outside. They're all still there, but not sure where they land on the kids' Christmas lists anymore. The lists seem much shorter today than in my day, and much more digital. Toys in 1983 sparked imagination and even social development, sharing, and storytelling. I'm not sure how many of today's hottest items can inspire kids, but I don't find them particularly creative or imaginative as the many ideas that popped up during the greatest era. The Gen experience, of course, where anything worth hanging around probably still is. Toys are for younger and younger children nowadays, and phones and iPads are thrust into kids' hands earlier and earlier to keep them engaged, out of the parents' hair, and simply quiet. But that's a whole nother story for somebody else. Thanks for joining me revisiting what we got for Christmas 40 years ago. Those days are gone, but it doesn't mean you can't recall, reminisce, and relive them. Right here. Honor your past so we can enjoy the present and be ready for the future. Check around the channel for more great content like this. And if you'd like to leave a Christmas present in the form of a like or a comment on the toys you had from this year and that year, I won't be mad. Please know how I appreciate you considering supporting me and clicking subscribe. Thanks to all of you who have already subscribed, and until next time, Merry Christmas.